The New York Times is reporting how Donald Trump acted toward women in private over the years. Sunday's article is based on more than 50 interviews. It says there's a pattern of, quote, unwelcome romantic advances, unending commentary on the female form, a shrewd reliance on ambitious women, and unsettling workplace conduct.
On Twitter this morning, Donald Trump called it a hit piece cover story, and he wrote it was just blown up by Roseanne Brewer, who said it was a lie. Trump was referring to Roanne Brewer Lane, who once dated Trump and was quoted by the Times.
They did take quotes from what I said, and they put a negative connotation on it. They spun it to where it appeared negative. I did not have a negative experience with Donald Trump, and I don't appreciate them making it look like that I was saying that it was a negative experience.
New York Times national political reporter Michael Barbaro and Times reporter Megan Twohey wrote the story. They're in Studio 57 for their first TV interview about the article. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
We will talk about the article in a sec, but I want to get your response to what she just said. She clearly seems to be walking back her comments that she said she made or didn't make to you. Michael,
Yeah, I interviewed Roanne Brewer Lane, and I'm going to let her speak for herself, but I think readers of the story can digest what happened to her at Mar-a-Lago in 1990. The story was that she had just met Donald Trump, and they were at an evening pool party, and he asked her, after taking a long tour of Mar-a-Lago, if she had brought a bathing suit. When she said she had not, he opened a drawer of bathing suits. The story is a little involved, but ultimately he asked her to put on one of those bathing suits. She did, and then he brought her out back to the pool in the crowd and essentially asked the crowd, you know, did they all think that she was a beautiful Trump lady? And I recall in my interview with her that she expressed she basically said I was taken aback by this, and I think that's how we depict it. And I think people can evaluate the story kind of on its own merits.
And why are you all looking into it now? Did you hear a lot of complaints about Donald Trump that you said there's something here, we need to check it out?
Right. Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think everybody's become familiar with the comments that Trump has made about women in public, from the campaign podium, from Twitter. And what we wanted to do was really kind of go behind the scenes and examine how Donald Trump has behaved with women in private, not just in recent years, but going back to his days at the military school in the 1960s. So that was our intent, and we gathered a variety of voices. And our story is not just Roanne's account of her experience with him in the 1990s. It's the experience of many women going back over the years. And I think that to go to Roanne's point, I mean, one of the things that we also did with this story is we kind of experimented with a new format for the New York Times. I mean, we really wanted to highlight these voices, and so we gave these women very large chunks of space to kind of explain their story in their own words.
What did you find about how he treats women?
Right. So I think that there were some themes that emerged. There were, some of the accounts with regards to unwelcome romantic advances, this unending commentary on the female form, this sort of shrewd exploitation of ambitious women, and in some cases, allegations of physical aggression.
And then there's another side to it, and this is the part that we found really fascinating. He is a paradoxical figure. This was somebody who promoted and nurtured the careers of many women, putting some women in positions and heights in the construction industry that never happened in New York.
Which people said at that time Michael was not done, and he was doing it.
He was doing it. Now, what's fascinating is that a single character in the story can inhabit all the contradictions of Donald Trump. Take a woman like Barbara Rez. She was put in charge of constructing Trump Tower, an extraordinary privilege for her, she told us, as a woman in that era, in the late 70s, early 80s. Several years later, she's in the office, and she observes behavior that she finds disconcerting. He tells her she's overweight. He says, "You like your candy," as she recalls it. He also witnesses she also witnesses Donald Trump take a woman who's about to go into an office full of largely men and pull her back because, in her words, he didn't find her pretty enough to be the presenter of lunch orders that day. So it's a complicated and really mixed bag. There's not a single dimension to this story. There's not a single dimension to Donald Trump.
So the big question about Donald Trump is, what is his attitude about women today, beyond what he has and has not done? How would you characterize his attitude today?
Right. Well, and I think that that's a great question. And I mean, we can sit here and sort of analyze, what we think of Donald Trump. But, what we wanted to do with this piece was to really give the women their voices and what their experiences has been. And, it's a complicated story. And at Donald Trump's, we talked to Donald Trump for an hour on the phone about, about our findings and, tried to gather his perspective. And, he instructed us to speak to several women who work within his organization now who had really great things to say about him.
Yeah, but to follow up on Charlie's point, should you be judged by behavior that you did in the past compared to how you conduct yourself today?
Well, I mean, I think that there's no doubt that a person is sort of the summary of their behavior over the years.
My question really, actually what I was trying to get at, not so much about that, but really what is his attitude about women? I mean, that's the question. It is influenced by what he's done in the past. It's influenced by what he says now. But what do you two, who really focused on this more than most, believe is his attitude about women?
It's
because
hard.
that's a crucial political issue.
It is. It's also it's an elusive answer. I don't think there is just one attitude. I think it's pretty clear that appearance has been very important to him throughout his life. The appearance of the women around him. There's a lot of value attached to that. I also think he believes that a woman who works hard and is very good at what she does can be more valuable than the men around them. At the same time, he behaves.
I agree with that.
He behaves in a manner that has left women who work for him or who have been around him feeling less wonderful than they'd like to feel.
Is that behavior disqualifying to be president of the United States?
That's why we have elections. I mean, but a vote for president is a profoundly personal one. There's something in your gut, and we're giving the readers information that they can use.
And to go back to the evolution, I mean, if you look at, for example, Donald Trump in his own words in his interview with us talking about, when he was married to Ivana in the 1990s, he gave her a prominent role within Trump organization. She served as president of two of his major branches of his empire, and she did very well. And by the, and he, while he paid her a dollar a year, but let's, in his own words, there was an evolution there. By the end of the marriage, he had determined that it was a mistake. He didn't want a wife. In his own words, he did not want a wife who came home and talked about work at the end of the day. And so he said in his previous, since then, in his marriages, he has not looked for that. He has not wanted a wife to be involved in his empire.
But yet, word is his daughter is being groomed to take over the organization.
Yes.
Should he become president?
Again, complications and contradictions.
Did you find things that were worse than anything you reported, but because of New York standards, you could not put it in the paper?
I don't think we want to go too deep into our process, but we felt very strongly that unless something could be verified in a lot of different ways, we weren't going to put it in the New York Times. So you can kind of leave that to your imagination that, yeah, certainly some things hit the cutting room floor, which happens in your journalism, happens in ours.
Thank you.
Michael Barbaro
Thank you all.
and Megan Twohey, you're certainly giving people a lot to talk about. Is Donald taking you to lunch anytime soon?
Yeah,
We're always
There's
very,
much to
we're always very
discuss.
eager to be
we'd
with
always
him.
be happy to talk to him.
Thank you both, as are we.